After everything Jessica had been through, the pain, the struggles, and the small victories, her life began to settle into a new rhythm. It wasn't perfect, and there were still challenges ahead, but for the first time in a long time, she felt like she was moving forward, not just surviving, but truly living. The days started early as usual. Jessica woke up to the soft sounds of her children playing quietly in their room. Maria and David were growing fast, and with each day, they seemed more confident and happy. That gave Jessica a strength she hadn't felt before. She smiled as she prepared breakfast, knowing that the little moments like morning hugs and shared smiles were what really mattered. Marcus had become a steady part of their lives, but slowly, carefully. He never rushed anything or pressured Jessica. He understood the importance of trust and respect. Sometimes they would meet for coffee or dinner, talking about simple things or sharing dreams about the future. Marcus was still the successful businessman, but to Jessica, he was just Marcus, the man who cared and who had never stopped believing in her. One afternoon, Jessica received a call that would change everything. It was from a local community center that had heard her story and wanted to offer her a new job. The position was to help other single parents find resources and support, just like she had found. Jessica felt a mix of excitement and nerves. This was a chance to give back and to turn her difficult experience into something positive. When she accepted the job, Jessica felt proud. She knew that helping others would also help her heal. She could share her story and show others that they were not alone, that life could get better. At work, Jessica met many parents who faced similar struggles. She listened to their stories, offered advice, and connected them to resources for housing, childcare, and education. It was hard work, but it was meaningful. For the first time, Jessica felt her life had purpose beyond her own family. Meanwhile, Marcus continued to support Jessica quietly. He helped by funding programs at the community center and even donated money for scholarships for children from single-parent families. He never made a show of it. Instead, he wanted to make sure Jessica's efforts had a lasting impact. As months passed, Jessica's confidence grew. She began to dream bigger, not just for her children, but for herself. She talked with Marcus about going back to school someday, maybe to study business or social work. Marcus encouraged her every step of the way, reminding her that she was capable of anything. Their relationship deepened slowly but surely. They shared more laughs, more memories, and more hopes. Marcus saw Jessica not just as the woman he once loved, but as the incredible mother and strong woman she had become. But life was not without its bumps. There were days when Jessica felt overwhelmed, when the weight of responsibility pressed heavily on her shoulders. Sometimes old fears crept in, fear of failing her children, fear of losing Marcus, or fear that the past would catch up to her. On one such night, Jessica sat by the window looking out at the city lights. Marcus joined her, sitting quietly beside her. They didn't speak at first, just shared the moment. Then Jessica opened up about her fears. Marcus listened carefully, holding her hand and reminding her that she wasn't alone. That moment deepened their bond. Jessica realized that opening up about her struggles didn't make her weak. It made her human. And having someone to share the burdens with made all the difference. Over time, Jessica and Marcus began making plans for the future. They talked about moving into a bigger home where the children could have their own rooms, where they could invite friends over and create new memories. They dreamed of family vacations, graduations, and celebrations that had once seemed impossible. Jessica also found herself reconnecting with old friends and making new ones. She joined a support group for single parents and found comfort in sharing experiences and advice. The community that had once seemed distant and harsh now felt like a source of strength. One weekend, Marcus surprised Jessica with a trip to the countryside. They packed the children into the Rolls-Royce and drove to a small cabin by a lake. The kids played in the water, chasing ducks and skipping stones, while Jessica and Marcus sat by the shore watching the sunset. In that peaceful moment, Jessica felt a deep sense of gratitude. Life had not been easy, but it had brought her to this place, a place of love, hope, and new beginnings. The story of the single mom kicked out of a dealership had come full circle. What started as humiliation and struggle had transformed into a journey of courage, kindness, and second chances. Jessica knew that challenges would still come, but she also knew that she had the strength and support to face them. She was no longer alone. She was a mother, a survivor, and now, a woman with a bright future ahead. And as the sun set over the lake, Jessica smiled, ready for whatever came next, knowing that this time, her story was hers to write. Jessica's life began to change in ways she never expected after Marcus showed up at the dealership and bought her a brand new car. It wasn't just the car that made a difference, it was what it represented. For the first time in years, she felt seen, respected, and supported. But the journey ahead was still full of challenges, and the old wounds she carried weren't easy to heal overnight. The day after the dealership event, Jessica sat at her small kitchen table with her two children, Maria and David. The SUV Marcus had bought for her was parked outside, shining bright under the morning sun. Her children were excited, bouncing around and asking questions about the new car. Maria wanted to know if they could go on long trips now. David just wanted to know if it had a TV inside. Jessica smiled, feeling a warmth inside that she hadn't felt in a long time. But deep down, she still had fears. She had learned to expect disappointment, to brace herself when good things happened because they often didn't last. What if Marcus was just trying to be kind for a moment and then disappeared again? What if this was all a mistake? Her heart was hopeful but cautious. Over the next few days, Marcus made sure to check in on Jessica regularly. He wanted to make sure she and the kids were okay and to see if there was anything else she needed. Jessica appreciated his kindness, but wasn't sure how to respond. She was used to being independent, used to solving problems on her own, even when it hurt her. Asking for help felt strange, almost like admitting she wasn't strong enough. Marcus understood this and never pushed. Instead, he offered his help quietly and respectfully. He brought over groceries sometimes, helped pay bills, and even arranged for a tutor to help Maria with her schoolwork. Slowly, Jessica began to trust him again, seeing that he really cared. Despite all this, Jessica's daily life was still tough. She worked her 2 jobs to keep things going, and there were still days when exhaustion pulled at her every step. Sometimes when she lay in bed at night after the kids were asleep, she thought about the future. What did she want for herself and her children? Could she imagine a life where they didn't have to worry about money every month? Could she imagine happiness again? One afternoon, Jessica received an unexpected invitation. Marcus had arranged for her to attend a local event about empowering single parents. The event was filled with other mothers and fathers who shared their stories of struggle and hope. Jessica listened quietly, feeling a sense of belonging. For so long she had felt isolated in her struggles. Now she saw she wasn't alone. There were many others fighting similar battles, and many were winning. At the event, Jessica spoke briefly. She shared her story, the humiliation at the dealership, the kindness of strangers online, and Marcus's surprising return. Her voice trembled at first, but she found strength in the faces of those who listened. People clapped and cheered, telling her she was brave. After the event, several community leaders approached her with ideas. They wanted to create programs to help single parents find jobs, affordable housing, and support systems. Jessica was invited to be part of the planning committee. She felt honored and important, something she hadn't felt in a long time. Meanwhile, Marcus was becoming more involved in Jessica's life. He wasn't just a billionaire ex-boyfriend who came to fix one problem. He wanted to build a genuine friendship and maybe one day something more. But he was patient. He knew Jessica had been hurt before and needed time. One evening, they sat together on Jessica's small couch after putting the children to bed. They talked about the past, the good memories, and the mistakes. Marcus apologized again for leaving her when life got hard. Jessica listened but didn't say much. She wasn't sure if she was ready to forgive fully, but she appreciated his honesty. Their conversations grew deeper over time. They shared hopes and dreams. Marcus talked about his company, and how he wanted to use his success to help others. Jessica talked about her wish for stability and happiness for her children. Slowly, trust grew between them. Jessica felt she could let down her guard a little. Marcus wasn't just the rich man with a fancy car. He was someone who understood her struggles and respected her strength. One weekend, Marcus surprised Jessica and the kids with a day at a nearby park. They packed a picnic and spent the day playing, laughing, and enjoying the sunshine. It was a simple day, but felt like a precious gift. Jessica saw the joy on her children's faces and felt her own heart lighten. But not everything was easy. Jessica still faced criticism from some people in town who remembered the past and whispered behind her back. Some old friends doubted Marcus's intentions, and some questioned if she was changing too fast. Jessica struggled with these doubts too. She wondered if she was moving too quickly, or if she was strong enough to handle all this change. But every time she felt overwhelmed, she reminded herself of how far she had come, from being laughed at in a dealership to standing proud in front of a crowd, accepted and supported. She also realized something important. She didn't have to do everything alone anymore. Having Marcus and new friends by her side didn't make her weak, it made her stronger. One quiet night, Jessica wrote in her journal. She wrote about the pain, the hope, the fear, and the courage she found each day. She wrote about the future she wanted to build for her children, a future filled with love, respect, and endless possibilities. She didn't know what the future held exactly, but for the first time, she believed that no matter what happened, she would face it with strength and hope, and that was the greatest gift of all. Jessica's journey was far from over. There would be challenges, setbacks, and hard days ahead. But with Marcus by her side and the community growing around her, she knew she wasn't alone. Together they would face whatever came next, and maybe, just maybe, this time the story would have a happy ending. The next morning, the sun had barely risen when a sleek black Rolls-Royce Phantom pulled up in front of the same luxury car dealership where Jessica had been humiliated just a day earlier. The city streets were busy with early commuters, but as the car stopped and the door opened, a hush seemed to fall over the crowd nearby. Out stepped Marcus, the billionaire ex-boyfriend who hadn't been seen in the town for years. He looked calm, confident, and dressed in an expensive tailored suit that fit him perfectly. His eyes were sharp but kind, a contrast to the harsh laughter Jessica had faced. Marcus walked into the dealership with a purpose. Everyone inside recognized him immediately. Whispers spread like wildfire. The same salesman who had sneered at Jessica yesterday stopped their conversations mid-sentence. The manager hurried to his side, trying to keep his composure but clearly nervous. Marcus asked to speak to the manager privately. They stepped into a glass-walled office overlooking the showroom floor. Marcus didn't waste time. He said plainly, "Did a single mom with 2 kids come here yesterday looking for a used SUV?" The manager swallowed and nodded, knowing exactly who Marcus was referring to. "Yes, sir," he said, trying to sound respectful but nervous. Marcus leaned forward, lowering his voice but making it clear he was serious. "She was here yesterday, and she was treated badly. The salesman laughed at her. They told her this was no place for someone like her." The manager's face turned red. "I'm very sorry, sir. That behavior was unacceptable. I'll make sure it never happens again." Marcus shook his head. "Apologies won't fix what happened to her." He paused, then said, "I want to buy her a car." The manager blinked in surprise. "Buy her a car, sir?" Marcus nodded. "Yes, the best SUV you have. Pay in cash. No questions asked." Back in her apartment, Jessica was surprised when her phone rang. It was the dealership manager. His voice was nervous but polite. "Ms. Thompson, this is Paul, the manager of the dealership. I want to apologize for how you were treated. Mr. Marcus is here and has asked me to invite you back. He'd like to personally meet you." Jessica's heart pounded. She felt a mix of shock, confusion, and hesitation. "I don't know if I can," she said quietly. "After yesterday." Paul interrupted gently. Please just come. He wants to make things right. After putting down the phone, Jessica took a deep breath. She looked at her children playing nearby, then at her old coat hanging by the door. She felt a nervous excitement she hadn't felt in a long time. Maybe this was a chance, not just for a new car, but for something bigger. At the dealership, Marcus was waiting in the showroom when Jessica arrived, holding her son's hand tightly. She looked around, unsure. The salesman avoided eye contact, but Marcus walked over to her with a warm smile. "Jessica," he said softly. "It's been a long time." She nodded, speechless for a moment. The years apart, the pain, and the humiliation all came rushing back. But so did the memories of better days. "Marcus," she whispered. He took her hand gently. "I'm sorry for everything you've been through. I want to help." Jessica's eyes filled with tears. "Why now?" Marcus looked her in the eyes. "Because you deserve to be treated with respect. You always have. And I'm sorry I wasn't here before." The staff watched silently as Marcus turned to the salesman and said, "Find the best SUV you have for Jessica, and make sure it's ready today." As the hours passed, Jessica's emotions swirled. The car they showed her was beautiful, safe, reliable, and perfect for her family. Marcus insisted on paying in cash, wanting to make sure there were no worries about financing or payments. While Jessica was overwhelmed by the generosity, Marcus told her something that stayed with her more than the car itself. "This isn't about the money. It's about making sure no one ever treats you like you don't matter. You matter, Jessica." The next day, local news caught wind of the story. Reporters interviewed Jessica, who spoke honestly about how hard it was to be a single mom judged by appearances. Marcus was there too, standing quietly beside her. Together, they sent a message. Kindness and respect should never depend on wealth or status. Their story touched many hearts. People began to rethink how they saw others, and some local businesses pledged to treat every customer with dignity, no matter their background. For Jessica, the day had started with fear and doubt, but ended with hope and a new sense of strength. Marcus's arrival was more than just a grand gesture. It was a reminder that people can change, and that second chances sometimes come in unexpected ways. As they left the dealership together, Jessica glanced at Marcus. She felt a flicker of something she hadn't felt in a long time: trust, and maybe, just maybe, a chance for a new beginning. Jessica's day began like many others since her bad experience at the car dealership. She woke up early in the small apartment she shared with her two children, Maria and little David. The apartment was modest, nothing fancy, but it was home. The walls were thin, so every sound from neighbors above and beside could be heard, but Jessica had grown used to it. The mornings were hectic, getting the kids dressed, preparing a quick breakfast, and making sure the school bags were packed. Her oldest daughter, Maria, at 8 years old, was responsible and often helped her younger brother David get ready. Jessica, despite the exhaustion, always tried to smile and act positive for their sake. After seeing her children off to school, Jessica sat at the tiny kitchen table with her phone in her hand. The night before, her best friend Kara had sent her a voice message filled with comfort and encouragement. Kara was one of the few people who knew all the struggles Jessica had faced since becoming a single mom 2 years ago. Kara reminded her how strong she was, how much she had already accomplished, and that nobody had the right to make her feel less than she was. Jessica scrolled through her phone and suddenly saw something that made her heart skip a beat. Overnight, Kara's post about Jessica being kicked out of the car dealership had blown up on social media. Thousands of people had shared it, commented on it, and many were sending messages of support. People were angry at the dealership for treating Jessica badly. Some shared their own stories of being judged unfairly because of their clothes or background. At first, Jessica was overwhelmed. She didn't understand how this small, painful moment in her life could reach so many strangers. But as she read more comments, tears filled her eyes, not from sadness but from the kindness of strangers. People called her brave, said she deserved better and urged others to help single mothers like her. Some local community groups even reached out offering support or ways to help with transportation. Jessica put down her phone and took a deep breath. It felt strange to be in the spotlight like this, but she also realized she wasn't alone. This support was new and gave her hope. Maybe this would open a door she never knew existed. Meanwhile, hundreds of miles away, Marcus sat in the sleek office of his company's headquarters. Marcus was the billionaire ex-boyfriend Jessica hadn't spoken to in years. After college, Marcus had worked hard, started his own tech company, and became wildly successful. He was known for his sharp mind and generous heart, but he had never forgotten Jessica. Their breakup had been painful. They had loved each other deeply during their early 20s, but life pulled them apart. Marcus had been chasing his dreams in a fast-moving tech world, while Jessica had stayed in their hometown, raising her children alone. They had lost contact gradually, but Marcus always wondered how she was doing. That morning, Marcus's assistant brought him a news alert with the post about Jessica. At first, he hesitated to click it, unsure if it was about her. When he read the story, his heart tightened. He could picture Jessica walking out of that dealership, embarrassed and hurt, holding her son's hand. He hadn't realized how hard things had become for her. Marcus spent the next hour scrolling through the comments. Many were filled with encouragement, but also frustration at the way people treated others based on appearances. Marcus felt ashamed that people had made Jessica feel invisible when she had done nothing wrong. He thought about the woman he once loved, how kind, hardworking, and beautiful she was inside and out. Without hesitation, Marcus made a decision. He would fly to their hometown to find Jessica and help her, not just with a car, but in any way she needed. His company had private jets, and he booked one immediately. For Marcus, this wasn't about money or showing off. It was about righting a wrong and showing Jessica that she was worth more than the judgments of strangers. Back in her apartment, Jessica had no idea that Marcus was preparing to arrive. She spent her day working her 2 jobs, first at a small cafe in the morning and then as a cashier in a local grocery store in the evening. Both jobs paid little, but they helped keep food on the table and bills paid. Every time she saw her children, she was reminded why she had to keep going no matter how hard life got. Her days were tiring, but she never complained in front of her kids. They needed her to be strong. At night, when she finally collapsed into bed, she often thought about how different life could have been. Sometimes she wondered if Marcus had ever thought about her, or if she had been just a memory he wanted to forget. Then, as the sun set on the 3rd day after the dealership incident, her phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number. "Jessica, this is Marcus. I saw what happened. I'm coming home." Jessica's heart raced. She stared at the message over and over, wondering if it was real or a cruel joke. She never expected to hear from Marcus again, especially like this. Her mind swirled with memories, good and bad. She remembered the late-night talks, the laughter, and the dreams they shared. But she also remembered the heartbreak when he left without much explanation. For the first time in a long while, Jessica felt a flicker of hope. The next morning, Marcus's private jet touched down at the local airport. Word spread quickly that the billionaire had returned to town. He arrived at the dealership first, stepping out of a shining Rolls-Royce Phantom. People stopped and stared, whispering about the man who had once been a regular guy but was now one of the richest men alive. Marcus asked for the manager and told him to find the woman who had been treated so badly just days before. The staff were shocked but did as they were told. Marcus was calm but serious. He explained that he wanted to personally make things right and help Jessica get the car she deserved. While all this was happening, Jessica was at home, still trying to believe that Marcus was back. She thought about what it could mean. Was he really there to help, or was it some kind of test? Would she be able to face him after all this time? The story of the single mom who had been kicked out of a car dealership was about to take a turn no one expected. Jessica's world was about to change, but she didn't know it yet. The same man who had once left her heartbroken was now stepping back into her life in a way that would test both of them and teach them that sometimes second chances are possible. Jessica was still uncertain about the future, but one thing was clear: she was no longer invisible, and her story was just beginning. Jessica pushed open the glass door of the car dealership, with her 5-year-old son holding tightly to her hand. The cold wind outside was nothing compared to the cold stares she felt as soon as she stepped in. Her hoodie was old and a little faded, and her jeans had a rip on one knee, not the stylish kind. Her shoes were worn out from months of walking her kids to school and getting to 2 jobs by bus. She looked tired, because she was tired, but today, she had hope in her heart. Today, she was going to try and buy a car. She had been saving every single penny for over 8 months. Every cup of coffee skipped, every toy her kids asked for that she had to say no to. It had all added up. Her old car had broken down for the last time a month ago, and she'd had no choice but to junk it. Since then, she'd been depending on unreliable buses and the kindness of one friendly neighbor. But that kindness had limits. The other night, she missed a shift at work because the bus never came, and her boss gave her a warning. One more missed day, and she could lose her job. That scared her more than anything. She couldn't let her kids down. So here she was, in a luxury car dealership. She knew she probably didn't belong here. But she had found a listing online that showed a used SUV in decent condition, and the price looked just within reach if she could get a payment plan. She had done her research, printed her income details, brought her documents, and even asked a co-worker to help her calculate monthly payments. She was nervous, but hopeful. She walked up to a desk where a man in a sleek suit was talking to another salesman. They were both laughing until they saw her. Their expressions changed. One of them looked her up and down with a kind of smirk that made her heart sink. The other raised his eyebrows, clearly surprised someone like her was in a place like this. "Can I help you?" the first man asked, his voice cool and not friendly at all. Jessica smiled politely. "Yes, I saw a listing for a 2015 SUV online, and I was hoping to ask about it. I wanted to know if you offer any payment plans or financing." The man didn't move. He glanced at the other salesman, then looked back at Jessica. That model's already been sold. Jessica felt her cheeks grow warm. "Oh, okay. Do you have anything else in that price range?" He leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. "We mostly deal in newer vehicles here. You might want to check one. Of those buy here, pay here places, they're more your type." Her son tugged at her hoodie and whispered, "Mommy, I have to pee." She bent down and gently told him to hold it just a little longer. When she stood back up, she looked the salesman in the eye. "I don't mean any disrespect. I'm just trying to get a reliable vehicle so I can get to work and take my kids to school. I have a job, 2 jobs actually, and I can make monthly payments. I'm not asking for a favor." He snorted. "Look, lady, we're not a charity. This is a luxury dealership. You're wasting your time and mine." Jessica blinked. She could feel every other pair of eyes in the showroom now on her. Some were pretending not to listen. Others didn't bother to hide it. One customer gave her a sad smile, but no one said anything. The second salesman chuckled under his breath, clearly amused. Her throat felt tight, but she forced herself to nod. "Okay, thank you." She turned, gently pulling her son along, and walked back out into the cold. As soon as the door closed behind her, the laughter started. She heard it, soft at first, then louder. It echoed in her ears as she walked to the bus stop. She didn't cry right away. She kept her head down and tried to explain to her son that they'd try again somewhere else. He looked up at her and said, "Are those men bad guys, Mommy?" Jessica didn't know how to answer. She just said, "No, baby. Some people just forget how to be kind." That night, when the kids were asleep, she sat in the tiny kitchen of her apartment, staring at a blank piece of paper where she had tried to write down her options. There weren't many. She felt so small, like the world was too heavy and she wasn't strong enough to hold up her piece of it. She picked up her phone and messaged her best friend, Kara. They had been friends since high school and always talked, late at night when things got tough. She told Kara the whole story, how the men at the dealership made her feel like garbage, how they laughed at her in front of her child, how they looked at her like she didn't matter. Kara replied with a voice note. Jess, that's disgusting. You didn't deserve that. You're one of the strongest people I know. Screw those guys. Later that night, Kara made a post online. She didn't use Jessica's name, just said, "Today, my friend, a hardworking, single mom, got laughed out of a car dealership for not looking rich enough. She was looking for a used car so she could keep her jobs. Shame on people who treat others like trash just because they don't wear designer shoes." The post wasn't meant to go viral, but people began sharing it. Some told similar stories of being judged by how they looked. Others said they had worked in sales and were ashamed of how often this happened. By the next morning, the post had over 10,000 shares. But Jessica didn't know that yet. She woke up, made breakfast, got her kids ready for school, and took the same cold walk to the bus stop. She didn't know that far away. Someone who used to know her very well had seen the post. Someone she hadn't spoken to in years. Someone who had once held her hand and promised the world before life tore them apart. And that person, now a billionaire, was about to come back into her life. But for now, Jessica just sat on the bus, holding her sleeping son in her lap, staring out the window, and wondering if life would ever stop making her feel invisible. She didn't know that the world had just started to notice her again, and she had no idea what kind of surprise was coming.